Hi guys, Jamie and Sarah here. On this channel, we like to talk about unique ways to make money outside of a 9-to-5. And one of our main sources of income is actually our rental properties. So this is something we don't necessarily talk about a lot, but it's actually our main source of income. So we thought that we would go over some real numbers for you of what we've actually made from our rental properties in 2021. So just to start off with the basics, we own 5 rental properties. That's 3 duplexes, a single family, and a 4-unit, so that's 11 units. We have chosen to pay off all of our mortgages on our rental properties so that each month we can have a really high monthly cash flow so that we can pursue other things like YouTube and becoming financially free.
So that just reduces our risk and allows us to have a lot simpler of a life.
Yes. That's important to us for sure.
So we thought we'd break it down our estimated income from rental properties and then our actual income, just so you can kind of see the types of things that we deal with as rental property owners. So the way we calculate our estimated income for our rental properties is we take our gross rents and then cut it in half. It's called the 50% rule, and that's how much we can expect to receive monthly. So our gross rents on all our properties is around $8,000 a month. So if we take half of that, that's $4,000, which is what we can expect to receive in our bank account each month. That sounds really great, but we're gonna take a look at the numbers today and show you just how different it can be from month to month.
We have chosen to use a property management company, which means that we actually pay a company to collect rents each month. They deal with some of the maintenance repairs, evictions if we have to, all the legal stuff, that kind of thing. And so they take a 10% cut of it each month, but that also means that it's completely passive for us. So we aren't dealing with like fixing toilets in the middle of the night. We're not dealing with collecting rent, stuff like that.
Yeah, and we really feel that that's worth it to us because otherwise it would take up all of our time and it would be a full-time job in and of itself. We thought we would break down each property and just show you the differences and how different expenses can come up and affect your total income.
So we're gonna start with this first property. It's a duplex. We've had it for about 4 years now. This property typically does pretty well for us. We're supposed to make $17.85 a month between both units. So looking at our spreadsheet from our management company, it looks like January and February we did make that rent. So this one did pretty well. You can see our management fees is 10% of that, so that's $178 a month. It looks like there was a repair in January for $135 and a repair in February for $42. So that's pretty low numbers.
Yes, definitely.
So we're happy with that. You pay water every 3 months. And so that's why there's nothing in January, but then in February, you have a bill for $145. Our total income for this property for January and February was $3,570. And our total operating expenses were $680.86. So that means that our net operating income, what we got to take home and put in our bank account, was $2,889.14. So that property did amazing January and February.
One thing to keep in mind, all these numbers we go through is not including taxes and insurance. We pay property taxes and insurance once a year, so that's why it's not on our monthly spreadsheet. But if I had to guess for this property, it's probably around $200 a month. So yeah, that's a great property. That's how it should look. That is awesome. If every property performed like that, it would be really great for us. But
yes.
We'll show you the next property. It's a little bit different. This next property is our 4-unit, and we acquired this property last year. And it had a few issues that we knew needed to be taken care of when we bought it. The first being that all the utilities are in the owner's name. So I pay for heat and electric. So one thing we had planned on doing was splitting the electric, but because of COVID and everything, that hasn't happened yet. So we're still currently paying for the electric for all 4 units, which is a big bummer. You'll see that in a minute. There was also some trees that were hanging over the house and needed to be removed if we were to keep this property long term. Trees are terrible for rental properties because even though they don't seem like they're doing any damage, they can cause your roof to go bad prematurely. They can also cause things like termites and not to mention storm damage and stuff like that. So trees are bad, especially big ones.
We usually try to look for rental properties that don't have big trees if we can help it.
We got a special winter deal on some of our rental properties for tree removal because they're pretty slow right now. So this property had a big tree removal expense. So let's just break down the numbers. In January, we received $2,200 a month in rent. which I think we're supposed to be around $2,400, so pretty close to actual. Someone maybe just chose not to pay their full rent. I'm not quite sure. But if you look at February, we only got $1,250. And that is because one of the units actually quit paying and then just left. So they maybe left sometime in January and they didn't find it till February. So that's why the income went from $2,200 to $1,250. That kind of stuff happens with rental properties where you'll have a tenant stop paying or just leave without paying. So for the 4-unit, for 2 months, we received $3,450 total in gross rents. Not quite as high as it should be. So, but then if you look at expenses for this property, management fees, pretty normal. Plumbing charge for $149. That's pretty typical too for, rental property. They just, sometimes there's leaks and, issues like that. So electricity, $232 in January and $154 in February. So hopefully once we can get that electric split, those expenses will go away. We also pay water for this property and it's very expensive for a 4-unit. So it's around $200 each month that we have to pay in water.
So water you typically have to pay for all of your income properties unless it's a single family. So you can always expect that as an expense. You typically don't have to pay for electric or gas. The reason we do on this one is because Jamie said it's all in one. There's not split utilities for each unit, which we're working on, but is a big expense. And because of COVID, it just hasn't happened yet. But that's a big expense every single month. Right, this month it was, close to $400. That will just go away once we get that taken care of.
So, and then the biggest expense on our list for this property was $1,300 for the tree removal. That was one that wouldn't come up very often, but it was necessary just for the long-term performance of the property. And $1,300 for trees is a lot cheaper than $10,000 for a roof. So, that's why we chose to do that. So our total expenses on this 4-unit was $3,137 for January and February. So that leaves us with a profit of $312.86. Yikes. Not very good, especially because I said that's leaving out taxes and insurance. So we're actually negative so far in this property for the year. But I think once they get a new tenant in and get that utilities split, I think it'll definitely be a profitable property for us. So that's the 4-unit. Let's go to the next one.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, next one. So this next property is also a duplex and we've owned it for 3 or 4 years now. It does pretty well. It's in not quite as good of an area of town as the other one. So we get around $1,400 a month in rent for this property. And it looks like based on our spreadsheet here that they did pay both months, both units. So our income for this property was $2,869. Not bad. The expenses for this property, this is another tree property, so kind of explained that before on our last one, but this one was big though. There was a lot of trees, so we had a $2,600 tree bill for this house. So big bummer to pay that, but we just had to be done. We plan on keeping these properties forever, so looks like other expenses besides management fees, just a plumbing expense for $368. Plumbing expenses can be a pain, but sometimes there's like a middle of the night emergency. They need to get Roto-Rooter over there to help with a sewer backup, and it's well worth the expense to pay someone to do that than to go over there yourself. So I'm happy to pay plumbing bills. So that brings our total expenses for this property to $3,542 for January and February, bringing us to a negative net profit of negative $673. That's bad.
That's bad. Yep.
But if these people keep paying throughout the year, that'll come back and turn positive, and it'll be a good thing. But that's where rental properties are interesting, because you're not guaranteed to get paid every month, and you have to anticipate that ahead of time. One thing that's nice about this particular property is that both tenants are Section 8, which is a government program to help people afford housing. So what that means is that we get paid by the government for their rent. So we're guaranteed to get paid as long as they are living there. So
sometimes we might get lower rent for that, but we're guaranteed it. So to us, we actually like Section 8. We know some landlords who will not accept it, but we actually like it. Even though we're getting lower rent, we're giving someone a really nice house and we're guaranteed rent. So for us, it's kind of a win-win.
Especially this past year during COVID when a lot of people couldn't afford to pay,
Right.
we are guaranteed to get paid. So it's definitely kind of a safety net for us as well.
Right.
So,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, and often those people don't move because because their rent is paid for. They kind of typically stick around longer than someone who is paying their rent. They'll move more often.
So this next property is a single family, and we bought this one in November, so it's a recent purchase for us. Because of that, there's some startup fees that we had to pay. There was some issues with the property that needed to be taken care of in order for it to get city certified for rental. One of them being that there needed to be a chimney liner put in. So that was a couple grand. So there's just some startup expenses on this property. But we recently placed a tenant, and that is a great thing. But because of that, part of our rental property management agreement is that they will take half of the first month's rent if they fill a vacancy. So in January, we got $576 in rent. That was because we only got half of the rent. And then in February, we got $920. They're supposed to be paying $1,200, so I don't know about that. This is also a Section 8 tenant, so I'm not quite sure. I'll have to maybe look into that and figure it out. But I expect that this month they will have paid that full $1,200. So our total income for this property is $1,496 for January and February. Expenses, we have management fees, plumbing bill, electricity bill for when there was no tenant. I have to pay the electric when there's no tenant there. So that's where that came from. And then trash also, if there's no tenant there, I have to pay for any trash, which I don't know why there would be trash, but I don't know, maybe old trash. And then in February, we had that new lease fee. I expect that maybe they filled it sometime in January, so that bill went on the February spreadsheet. So $600 to fill that lease. So our total expenses for this property were $1,360 for the 2 months. So our net income was $135.90.
In the positive.
But that's before taxes and insurance.
Yeah,
so.
okay.
So, but this one will start to perform better. But we kind of, you can kind of tell already, we had a lot of different big expenses pile up at once, which is one thing you definitely need to consider if you're considering starting investing in rental properties. So.
Yeah, I think this looks very discouraging if you haven't ever invested before and you're not really sure if you want to get into it. These numbers can look really scary, but we've also had months where it's more than 50% and we do really well. That 50% is actually more of an average. So right now we're way below 50%, but some months you may be higher. So we definitely believe in rental properties as a passive income. We think it's super smart to invest and just get into, but this is real life. These are the real numbers. So
absolutely.
So our last property is our very first rental property that we ever purchased back in 2014, I believe. It's a 2-unit. They have actually been the exact same tenants who lived there when we bought it. They've never moved out, which in some ways is really amazing. We've never had a vacancy gap. They don't complain a lot. They like their home. They want to stay there. They're pretty good tenants for the most part. We do have issues with these tenants sometimes not paying for a few months, but then they always catch back up. So they're not always like on time with rent, but for the most part, we're happy with them as tenants. They have really low rent. We don't raise it on them. Because we're happy with these tenants, we don't actually have them pay market rent because we want them to want to stay. We don't want to make them move out because they're good tenants. So
yeah. And so we only paid $33,000 for this house. So very cheap. So if we were to have new tenants come in, we'd have to do major updating, which would be a huge expense. And if they're happy to pay that rent, that's good for us. And so it's one of those situations where it's just good for everybody to not have a vacancy. Vacancies are very expensive, and they're the biggest cost in landlording and owning rental property is if you have a vacant unit. Because not only are you not getting rent, you're also having to fix the unit up for a new tenant. So
true.
Yep.
Yeah, so it looks like we do have some issues with some tenants, or with one of the tenants not paying the past couple of months. So we'll have to check in on that and see what's going on. So it looks like our income for these for January and February for this property was only $1,480, which it's supposed to be how much?
It's supposed to be around $2,000, so around $1,000 a month. So
right. That's for both units. Here's our management fees, $148 for the 2 months. Looks like they had a really small maintenance repair. Again, these guys just don't complain. That's one of the reasons we love them, is they're pretty low maintenance tenants. We did have to replace a hot water heater. That was a $1,000 bill, so that kind of stuff happens too. So it looks like our total operating expense was $1,168.50. So that means that we were able to take home, our net operating income was $311.50. So
not too great.
Not great again. So 2021 has not been shaping out too great for our rental properties, but
yeah, I think the one tenant is 2 months behind, so if he's not able to pay soon, I think they'll probably give him an eviction notice and stuff like that. But I'm thinking with stimulus checks coming out, I think he'll hopefully be able to catch up and be able to stay in that unit. But
yeah, they always give him a 30-day notice. You don't kick people out just immediately when they don't pay rent. They give them a lot of chances. So hopefully he can catch back up. Yeah, and so again, we don't have mortgages on any of these properties, so that's why you're not seeing that expense in any of them. So this is our actual take home. If we had mortgages on these, imagine how much worse it would be.
We'd be a little nervous right now.
Yeah.
So
this is the route we've chosen for our investment properties, is to be debt free on them, just because of that low risk for us and for our family and that simple life that we want. It's important. You definitely can grow a lot faster and maybe have more income coming in every month if you had a lot higher of a debt ratio, but for us, it's just not worth it. So that's where we're at.
So let's add up the total here. I'm curious to see how close it is to $4,000. Okay, so our total net income on our rental properties for January and February was $2,975.40. So that averages out to about $1,487 a month.
So if you remember, our gross income is supposed to be $8,000 a month, which we can expect to take home about $4,000 a month if you use that 50% rule. But according to these numbers, we only took home $1,487 per month through January and February of this year. So we're definitely not living up to that 50% rule at this time. But we had to do some really important things to help keeping our properties going and making sure that they last a long time. And we had some vacancies and also some people not paying rent and that kind of thing. So, but this is real life experience of kind of owning these rental properties, and that you maybe shouldn't totally rely on it because it can be way different than you expect. Even if we expected 50%, it's way less.
Yeah, so we hope that doesn't scare you, but if you are considering getting into rental properties, keep in mind that leverage, there is risk to owning them. So reducing your amount of risk as much as possible is very important. So for us, that was especially important because we're self-employed and all of our other income sources vary from month to month as well. So to take on a bunch of risk by having a bunch of mortgages really wouldn't make a lot of sense for us. So consider that when you're looking to invest in rental property. We still, like we said, really believe in them and think that they're a great way to build wealth and passive income. So
totally.
If you have any questions for us, let us know. Otherwise, we will see you guys next time. Please let us know in the comment section also if you enjoy this type of content. We're really passionate about it, so we'd like to know if you are, so that we can share more of our experience. So we'll see you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye.